Before we start with the restoration of this Orbiter Expo radio, which is from the late 60s, early 70s, I want to make an announcement, which is that in the month of July, I'm probably not going to publish a lot of stuff on my channel, neither in August, by the way, because I'm doing all sorts of work on the house, because some of you may know that I intend to have a 100% lab built into the house, where I can do my restorations and film my restorations, and possibly, maybe even do some live broadcasts. I'm not sure yet if I want to do the live broadcasts, but either way, I want a decent lab to work in, and I need some time, and I need some. I badly need some time off. Okay, I need some vacation too. So there you go. That's the general announcement for my channel. Now let's jump into the restoration of this TEC Orbiter Expo. Alright, I unscrewed the two little screws here, and this is what I see so far. You can see the radio mechanism in there. And I should say that originally this ran on rechargeable batteries, okay? But it could also run on AC power. Now, I bought this radio from England, and it came with those typical ugly British chunky AC connectors, okay? So there's a charger inside here which could recharge the nickel cadmium batteries that could be inserted into this battery holder right here. Okay, I connected it to the Variac, and the Variac is now outputting about 125 volts AC. You might ask why. Well, that's entirely because I have no idea whether this was originally a 110 volts transformer or a 220 volts, right? I have no idea. Now, I did remove this cap here, and it says this receiver uses transistors inside. Yeah, it uses transistor devices which are not user serviceable. To prevent electrical shock, do not remove back cover, reverse servicing to qualified service personnel. Well, I think I am qualified enough to work on this, so yeah, I think we can disregard this warning. It also says position for AC cord. Okay, so the transformer was housed underneath here. Okay, so this is the little cage covering the transformer and the AC part of the radio, and then the space on top was meant to stow away the AC connector. Okay, so that's easily removable. Oh, and it's held in place by those two little screws at the back, remember? Before I'm going to try to unmount the radio, I propose we try to fire it up on 110, well, more like 125 volts AC, just to be on the safe side. And if that doesn't work, we can still ramp it up to 220. Alright, let's use some contact cleaner. Okay, the AM seems to work, quote unquote. It's just a lot of noise, but I don't doubt it's all my equipment and the lighting which is creating all the noise. But the FM so far only gives a very soft humming sound, but nothing else. Alright. I got the remaining 4, well, the 5th is in the box, but I got the remaining 4 nuts, which are supposedly holding the front of the radio in place. But to get to the last nut, typically, you know, I was using this socket wrench, okay, so this one here, okay, and of course there was not enough space down there in this corner here to get to the nut, obviously. It was destined to happen. So what I did was I placed an extension piece, another socket wrench holder, and then the socket wrench on top of that. Alright, so I used this extension to make the whole socket wrench a bit longer, and then I managed to reach all the way down to the nut which I wanted to release. Great! So now they are all released. Let's see together if I manage to release the front of the radio, right? Okay, so the whole front now should theoretically be loose and move forward when I pull on it, right? So let's see. Oh yeah, there is movement. But oh dear, it's not going very easy. Let's use a wooden spatula, you know, because I don't want to damage anything. Oh, here we go. Okay. There you go. The front is loose. And now what? Oh, look at that. There you go. bloody hell. Sorry. It's making me sneeze. Well, there you go. I managed to release the... Oh, okay. And I think I see something. Oh, no. Oops. No, I should not have done that. Okay. So this piece right here, okay, is stuck to the front panel of the radio with tabs, with plastic tabs. And I thought maybe by slightly pushing on it I could release it. But no, apparently not. It's stuck in with glue. Oh dear. But let's see. It doesn't matter. I mean, if I can lift this all the way, and that would allow me to work on it, that would be nice. But oh dear. No, we still have a problem. We still have a problem. Namely, the tab of the volume potentiometer is blocking me. I can't move the print board side to side more than a few millimeters to the left or the right. Oh dear, because of this thing here, you know, the tab of the volume potentiometer. So I might have to release this part here all the same, which means that somehow I need to be able to pull it away from the front of the radio without damaging it. Alright, so I've got another problem. So I still can't move the print board very well. But in the end I managed to move it sideways somewhat by releasing two screws that are holding the potentiometer, the slider potentiometer, to the print board. And it turns out they attached the pot to the print board with little wires, extension wires. Alright, so, oh no, okay, sorry, it's the black wires. Okay, you see there? So those wires attach the pot to the print board, so, which is fine, but then, you know, I'm still struggling with the dial face, you know, the dial knob, and right down there, you see this little opening here? I'm wondering what this is. Alright. Come on, focus. Yeah. Alright, so I'm going to unmount the little transformer of the power supply, okay? And it's held down by two screws and 6mm nuts. The same ones that are used to hold down the PCB of the radio, okay? So for convenience sake, I'm going to unmount the transformer and take out the AC wiring through the front of the radio, and that will make my life a little bit easier. Oh, I forgot to mention one very important detail. Despite long nights looking for a schematic of of the radio. I haven't found one anywhere. There's no schematic on the inside of the cabinet, so yeah, I'm sort of relying on my ready knowledge of radios, well, portable radios anyway, to help me through in the restoration of this one. So yeah, bear with me if sometimes I have to be vague, or sometimes I have to say I don't know. I haven't got the time or the resources to completely reverse engineer this radio. But yeah, no schematic, so that will ask a little bit of effort on my part. Alright, let's measure the AC volts coming out of the transformer. Okay, so there's about 11.1 volts coming out of the transformer, but that's on the two outer wires, so the two red wires coming out of the transformer. Now if I measure it between the black wire, which is the center tap, and one of the red wires, it should be about 5 volts. Yeah, 5.5. And the other one, okay, 5.5. Okay, so 5.5 volts on either side of the center tap of the secondary of the transformer. 5.5 AC. Okay, so let's see. Wait, let's see if the light of the charger indicator works. No, the light bulb doesn't seem to work. Maybe I'm doing something wrong here. Let's see. How much voltage do we get? Let's see. Okay. So the output of the DC power supply is almost 7.6 volts DC. A little bit less, a few millivolts less than 7.6 volts. Alright, now for some reason the charger light bulb, which is this little lamp here, you see this little glass light bulb here, so which is a filament lamp, isn't lighting up, but it's possible that it's broken, of course. Let's see. The wires of the little light bulb were shorted, so 7.64 volts. Okay. So yeah, the light bulb isn't lighting up, but I would guess that is because there's no load on the charger. So there are no batteries to charge. Okay, so how about we switch on the radio and see if it works, right? Alright, so I temporarily mounted back the PCB in its original position so that we can use the tuning button and see if the radio works or not. So let's try AM first. Obviously I'm not going to linger on any station, okay, but let's just try it out, okay? Here we go. Okay, so AM is not doing much, but I know AM is very, very sensitive for all sorts of interference signals, you know, like signals coming from LED lighting, the camera itself, all my equipment around us. So yeah, AM is, at least I would say, it seems to work, but we're not sure yet. So let's try out the FM. Remember, there's no antenna connected to it, just a little piece of wire, okay? So let's see if we can receive anything on the FM band. Alright? So here we go. Absolute quiet. Absolutely nothing on the FM band. Dead quiet. Okay, so we will have to investigate a little further then. Alright, I hooked up my scope to the local oscillator for the AM band, and it does seem to work. So if I move the tuning button, you will see the frequency of the local oscillator change, right? Okay, so the local oscillator for the AM band works, and on occasion I did manage to receive an AM radio station, but it's very weak and sounds like way far away, you know, so the radio isn't really very sensitive. But yeah, I think, in my honest opinion, the AM part of the radio works. The FM part, however, not so much. So I still need to dig in a bit there and see if I can find what's wrong with it. First indications are the FM local oscillator isn't working. Alright, I connected the radio up to my high frequency generator over there, okay? And I'm injecting a high frequency signal between, let's say, 80 and 110 megahertz, a modulated one, an AM modulated one, through a capacitor of 22 nanofarad into the antenna input of the radio, okay? And just to see if the local oscillator is indeed broken or not, and if the radio functions and if it's receiving anything. And apparently it is receiving something. So the radio somehow woke up. And this is what I'm getting when I'm turning the the frequency knob. There. Okay. So I'm on the F band, so I'm around 102 megahertz right there. Okay. And I'm using internal modulation, which is about 400 hertz. So if I switch the internal modulation off, you see, no more sound. So yeah, the high frequency stage of the radio does seem to work, and I am receiving radio stations, but very, very weakly. I mean, the volume slider or knob is at maximum, so fully to the right. I hope you can see that. Okay. And it should be screaming loud. I mean, like really incredibly loud, and it isn't. I mean, the loudest thing I can get on the FM band is my own high frequency generator, right? So, there. That's about as loud as I can get it. Okay? But like I said, it should be screaming loud. En het isn't. Minister van Buitenlandse Zaken Labi ontslag moet nemen na de ophef over het bezoek van een Iraanse delegatie in Brussel. De brief van staatssecretaris Pascal. The radio is selective. I mean, I can get quite a few FM radio stations, but it's not very sensitive. I mean, the loudest thing it receives is obviously my high frequency generator, okay? But even close by radio stations, FM radio stations, come through only very weakly, which is, well, a little bit strange, let's say. I mean, on the AM band, the sound is really loud, but the selectivity is bad. On the FM band, it's the reverse. It's rather quiet, and the selectivity is good, but the sensitivity is bad. So, since I don't have a schematic of the radio, I think I will do a little bit more research, measure out a few components, especially around the high frequency stage here. So maybe a resistor is off or something like that. But I would say the low frequency part, so the amplifier, which is this part here, works perfectly. And I would say the IF and even the local oscillator does work. So yeah, I'm not going to mess with it too much since I don't have the schematic, but I think measuring out a few components I can do, and who knows, maybe I'll even manage to increase the sensitivity a little bit of the radio. I think I may have found the culprit for the weak reception volume of the radio, and more precisely, it's one of these two components. So either the transistor you see there, or the resistor behind it, which is a 270 kilo ohm resistor, right? Now watch what happens, or rather listen what happens when I spray some cold spray on the transistor and on the resistor. So okay, hang on, I need to switch over. Okay, so here we go. So first I'm going to spray the transistor. The sound dies away. Alright. And when I heat up the transistor with my breath, the sound comes back. Now watch what happens when I spray cold spray on the biasing resistor of the transistor. The sound dies away completely. Alright. So I suspect the resistor, the frosty one you see right there, is bad. I measured it with the radio off, and it measures 323 kilo ohms, while it should be 270. So the resistor is definitely off in value, so give me a moment to replace it, and then we'll check the working of the radio again. Alright, here's the resistor, and this is what it measures. About 316 kilo ohms. Okay. There you go. Red, purple, yellow, and with a silver band. So I think that's 10% precision. Alright, I just pulled this transistor out of the circuit, and as you can tell, it's a 2SC461. I looked it up. It's a high frequency NPN transistor, and what I would draw your attention to is the blackened little pins or leads of the transistor, right? So in all likelihood the leads of the transistor are silvered. Alright, I tried the 3904 and it didn't work. So in the end I took a BF199. Okay, and the BF199 is apparently compatible with the two SC461, right? So at least we know that now. So we know the BF199 can be used as a substitute for the 2SC461, but unfortunately for me, it still doesn't make the radio work a jot bit louder. Yeah, not a little bit. Yeah, not even remotely. Now, however, since I did replace the transistor and the resistor, the radio is now a bit more stable. Yeah, let me prove it to you. So let's cold spray the new transistor. So it's not becoming much louder, right? And not more quiet either. So, okay, I think this should make it work, but it's still not screaming loud in FM. So I need to look further on for a solution. To my great surprise, apparently the radio was also sold under the brand names Nuvox, Telestar, a Sears model 12243, an Arrow model 23, a Luxtone NTR 901, and a Tokai G1110. Maybe even a GE model P-975D. Some of the radios don't look exactly like this one, but let's say electronically wise, they are pretty similar. Okay, so yeah. Unfortunately, despite of all this, I couldn't find the exact schematic of this radio. So I'm helping myself with a generic 9-transistor portable radio schematic. Alright. I downloaded it from radiomuseum.org, link below the video. And there you go. It's not exactly the same circuitry as the one we see here, but it's quite similar. So let's say it's a good help to me to diagnose radio. So anyway, how far am I? Or how far have I gotten in diagnosing the radio? Well, we know now that the end stage, so the preamp, the driver, and the end stage amplification transistors, so the push-pull, works really well, in fact. Except maybe for the slider potentiometer, which is, well, worn out. So I would have to find a new one, because this one, which is mounted on the radio, is really not very good anymore. But either way, we know the amplification stage, the audio stage, works really well. Okay. So what else did I do? I replaced all the electrolytics, which were, I think, 8 in total, or 9 in total. Yeah, something like that. And I also replaced 2 transistors. The RF amplifier transistor and the FM oscillator, local oscillator transistor. Yeah, both were replaced by a BF199 silicon transistor. Okay, so I'm fairly certain that the tuning part, so the FM and the AM tuning part, work, and since the AM and FM tuning part work, and I can get a little bit of sound out of them. I'm fairly certain the problem is either in the IF stage, alright, these two transistors here, or in the detector stage, alright. My conclusion is this radio could probably do with an alignment, alright, but unfortunately for me, all the alignment transformers, all the coupling transformers were glued shut, as you can tell. So at the factory they use some sort of glue to lock the kernels in place. Alright. So aligning it is probably a no-no. So what I'm reduced to is, at least for the FM part, is to have a closer look at the detector diodes for the FM. So here, these two here, and which are located on the PCB right here. Alright, so these two diodes here. More than likely germanium diodes, by the way. So, yeah, like Sherlock Holmes says, if you rule out every possibility, then no matter what remains, no matter how improbable, must be the solution. So my thought is that the problem is maybe the detector here, yeah, or the IF stages, of course, but I think I'm going to have a closer look at the detector stage for the FM band, right? Alright, I think I may have found the culprit, or the smoking gun, which was keeping the radio from working normally, alright? And it's this little transistor, the 2SC460, alright? So this is the second IF transistor, okay? Notice that the leads of the transistor are blackened, so you could say a kind of silver rot, okay? And it was located right there, okay, so right here. And I replaced the 2SC460 with a BF199, which is quite a good transistor for VHF frequencies, okay. It's an NPN transistor, silicon, by the way. So there you go. The radio works now perfectly in FM. It's screaming loud. It's incredibly selective and very sensitive. So I'm really, really, really happy with the result. And in the end, what did I do to the PCB? Well, I replaced all the electrolytic capacitors, I think 8 of them in all. I replaced 3 transistors, 3, okay, 1 resistor, and I added a resistor to it too, mainly to the slider of the volume potentiometer, alright. I did that because the volume goes, without it, goes from 0 to maximum in one jump, very annoying. So by adding a 10K to the wiper contact of the slider potentiometer, I can still more or less regulate the volume from minimal or 0 to plus minus maximum. Okay, it's not ideal, I agree. The best thing to do would be to replace it by a new slider potentiometer, but I don't have any handy right now. So yeah, the FM band works perfectly now, and mind you, it's not connected to an antenna. So let me just go through the FM band to give you a little overview of the stations it can receive as it is right now. Okay, so here we go. I'm not going to linger on any particular station, by the way. There you go. So, and mind you, this is without any antenna, okay? So if I connect an antenna to it, it's way more sensitive and selective. What I need to do now is concentrate a bit more on the looks of the radio and, clean the dial face and, and maybe retouch it a little bit where there are some flaws in the paint and all that, gently of course. I'm not going to use anything corrosive to do this, but either way it needs a bit of cleaning. Once the radio is completely cleaned and reassembled, I'll give you a little demo of the radio. Well, here you are. I cleaned the PCB as well as I could in all directions, on the other side too, the component side I mean. And let me tell you, quite a bit of dirt came off of it. I would say a mixture of grease, nicotine, maybe some dust, oily residues, you name it. Even remnants of soldering flux came off. Alright. So yeah, now the PCB is presentable. It's not ultra clean, but compared to what it was, it's certainly an improvement. And let me tell you, quite a bit of dirt came off of it, as you can tell from the residue inside the cleaning liquid, right? So all of this stuff you see there at the bottom came off of the PCB, well, the solder side at least of the PCB. But I also cleaned the top side, the component side, and yeah, now it looks, I think, more or less the way it would have looked like when it came out of the factory, right? So there are only two more details that I need to fix on this PCB, and that is to replace these flimsy little wires, the very thin blue and yellow wires, and replace them with more solid, more contemporary wiring, because I want the radio to last as long as possible. Alright, so hopefully another 50 years or maybe even 100 years, right? So, yeah, I want to make the radio work forever if possible, and that's why I'm going to replace these two wires. Once this is done, I'll switch over to cleaning the case of the radio. Alright, all the parts for the cabinet are quote-unquote restored, so repaired, cleaned, retouched a little bit with paint where necessary, not too much. Yeah, it's still, from a distance, this looks okay. But I mean, obviously, if you look close up, you will see that I did a little bit of touch-ups with paint here and there to restore the original black background. I did my best to do it with a steady hand. You can see that sometimes I missed the mark by a tiny little bit, but yeah, the front panel looks okay. I also restored the silver paint on the special bezel. Alright, okay, so that looks okay. What else did I do? Oh yeah, I cleaned and polished the glass or the lens that goes inside that special bezel, right? So right there. It was stuck inside with glue, and I managed with a little bit of cleaning petrol to loosen it up. Alright, so yeah, I'll have to remount it back inside of the bezel, right? Okay. What else did I do? Oh yeah, I cleaned the dial, okay, as well as I could. I couldn't be too aggressive because the paint is really sensitive to all sorts of cleaning products. I used a mild solution of alcohol and distilled water to clean this up. It's not perfect by any means, but it looks a little cleaner, and also I dabbed a tiny little bit of black paint where the aluminum came through the paint. Okay, so again, from a distance it looks okay. It's not perfect, not by any means. I cleaned the little round dial face, okay, which happens to be plastic actually. I thought first it was just like the dial here, the dial face here. I thought this was, aluminum, painted aluminum. No, actually this is just a piece of plastic with some paint on it, or painted symbols on it. So I cleaned that up again with a very mild solution of distilled water and alcohol. Okay, so there you go. I cleaned that up. Oh yeah, and then the speaker originally, the speaker was attached to, let me show you, the speaker was attached to the back of the radio, right in this area here, okay, and in front of the speaker was this grill here. Okay. So I don't know if you can see this. I think you can. Yeah. So this grill was attached in front of the speaker, and it turns out that the speaker was attached with these nasty little things here, these clip-ons here, and these screws. And in fact, it turns out that those screws, which are flathead screws, okay, were melted inside the body of the grill that covers the speaker, right? So actually what they must have done in the factory is heat up the heads of these little screws and then press them inside into the plastic of this cover, right? But these turn out to be very, very brittle. Also, as I said, the speaker was held on by these nasty little press-on washers, let's say. Okay. I even managed to hurt my finger on them. I bled quite a bit. Trying to loosen one up, okay. But these are really nasty little things. So I'm going to look for a replacement for these, because I don't want to reuse these screws to attach the speaker. What I am going to do though is I'm going to use, for let's say 99% of the parts that need to be stuck back on the case of the radio, I will use double-sided tape. I have some industrial double-sided tape here, and which turns out to be rather thin and very, very sticky. Yeah. So I'm going to use double-sided tape instead of glue, because let's face it, if you use glue, glue is a pretty destructive way of assembling or restoring something. So wherever possible, I'm going to use double-sided tape instead, so that if somebody wants to restore this radio many years from now, all they have to do is use a little bit of cleaning petrol and to loosen up the glue of this double-sided tape, and that's it, and then they will be able to pull it loose. Okay, so this is non-destructive glue, alright, so it's super sticky, but it'll never grow hard. Okay. Alright, so now this little dial face needs to be stuck onto the dial knob. Okay, so right there, like this. Okay. I will need to do this at the very end only. You know, I can only do this at the very end. Once the radio PCB, so once this part right here, okay, is mounted back inside the case. Okay, once that is done, then I can mount back the dial knob, and only after that I can mount back the bezel. Alright. By the way, before I can mount it back, I need to mount back the lens inside of it. Alright. So yeah, there's a very specific order in which I can mount all the parts of the radio. So it's you can't mount it all back in just any old order. You really need to do it in a very specific order. Okay? So there you go. By the way, the speaker, I will not mount the speaker back with the original attachments, so these nasty little things here. I will use some double-sided tape for the speaker as well. This is just too nasty, too destructive, too hard to manage. Alright, so there you go. Yeah. Alright, so there are two tabs on the backside cover of the speaker, okay, the grill in fact, and you could technically you could put it either this way up or that way up, but if you look at it from the back, you'll see there's a gentle slope to these traverses here, okay, to these little horizontal pieces. There's a gentle slope outwards, so in this direction. Alright, so I think that's how they originally intended this to be applied, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. So all the little pieces of double-sided tape are applied, so here we go, I would say. Here we go. There you go. Okay, let's press it from the back as well. Alright. Alright. So there you go. A non-destructive method of attaching the speaker grill. Alright, when you mount back the slider potentiometer for the radio, be mindful to insert it back with the position for maximum volume at the bottom of the PCB, not at the top, okay, because strangely enough on this radio maximum volume is at the bottom, not at the top. Okay, so that's an important detail to keep in mind. Alright, I mounted back all the buttons on the front of the radio. There are two details that are really important and that you should remember before sticking back the dial face on the dial button, okay, which is that you need to, before you mount back the PCB, you need to turn the tuning capacitor all the way left, okay, that way you can mount the button back onto it in the right direction. Remember, the tuning dial button should pass over the top of the radio, okay, not over the bottom, okay. By the way, before you mount back the tuning knob, okay, make sure that the piece of felt that goes on top of, well, on the back of the tuning knob is in place, okay, because once you've mounted everything back, including the bezel, if you forget to put the felt first, you'll have a big problem. before you mount back the radio, you need to mount the transformer first. And for that, you need the radio open, so without the front, okay? Because the mount for the transformer is here, and you need to put two screws in, one here and one over there, okay? But you can only reach the nuts of the screws from this side, so without the front of the radio mounted. So there you go, I mounted back the transformer on its little pedestal here. There are two screws and that's it. Mind you, the clamp which mounts as a pull relief for the AC wire, okay, should be mounted on the left side of the radio if you look at the front, okay. So yeah, I mounted it down there. I also took out the old-fashioned knot that people used to put in AC wires as a sort of a pull relief, yeah. The knot was unnecessary, totally unnecessary. This little plastic piece will provide all the pull relief there is ever needed for this radio, okay. So there you go. Yeah, the screws are a bit on the long side, but I guess they did what they could with the parts they had, right? So there you go. One mounted power transformer. Before you mount back the front with the PCB to the cabinet, if or when you unmounted the antenna, okay, which is attached to this little brass plate on the inside of the radio, so if you detached the antenna, which is held on by two little screws, then mount the antenna back first before you mount back the front of the radio. That way it'll be a lot easier to mount back. I added a fuse, okay, to the AC circuit, simply because I just can't stand the fact that the previous generations were very cavalier about safety in the home, and they wanted to save a few cents, not building in a fuse holder, okay. And in my opinion, where your safety is concerned, your personal safety and the safety of your home, adding a fuse of just a few cents can save you a lot of life-changing trouble later on, okay. So yeah, even if it's not something original, I do believe adding a fuse to the AC circuit is a must. Okay, here it goes. The AM band, right? than keep that darn ugly British connector, I gave the radio a local EU style AC connector, okay, and you have to admit it looks a lot better than that very ugly chunky British connector, right? And besides, the radio is built to function on 220 instead of 110. Okay, so you can stow away the cable, the AC cable, into the compartment right next to the battery, like this. Okay, there you go. So you can stow it away completely, and then close up the box like that. So there you go. The TEC Orbiter Expo radio completely restored, cleaned and repaired. It was a hell of a job. I don't think I'm willing to do it anytime soon again. I mean, repairing this kind of radio, it was really a hellish job. But hey, I learned a lot, and I'm actually glad I did this radio, because to celebrate 10 years of my channel, I am going to take on, before the year's out, a rather special project, which will be quite demanding, where restoration techniques is concerned. So I had the occasion to try out a few techniques on this radio, and they will be useful to me when I start that very special project later in the year. Okay, so there you go. The Orbiter Expo radio. I hope you liked watching the restoration, and I hope to see you all soon again on my channel. So, thanks for watching.